So today I'm going to be making a lobster bisque, but it's got to be lactose free. So I'm going to make this lobster bisque, and in the lobster bisque, I want to put in a nice little lobster savory flan in the center with the soup all around it. So I'm going to start off with making the flan. Now, to make this lactose free, the substitute that I'm using for cream, heavy cream, is coconut cream. You can get it at the store. You can buy it. It says it right on it, coconut cream. It's very thick. And the reason I buy this instead of coconut milk is because then I can put a little water in it and I can get the consistency I want. So here it's kind of like a heavy cream. And I'm going to start out by putting that in here in this pan. Okay, now like I said, what I want to do is get this to be a flan. I'm going to use it in a flan, a lobster flan. I want it to have a good lobster flavor. So I'm going to put in the shells of the lobster. I already pre-cooked the lobster. I took the meat out of the shells, and I'm going to use some of those shells to intensify the flavor in this coconut cream. And tarragon goes great with this too, so I'm going to put in a little bit of tarragon and a pinch of salt. So I'm going to let that simmer for a while. Let me turn that. We're going to let that simmer and let that pick up the flavor of the lobster. While I'm waiting for that to happen, I'm going to start greasing my ramekins. So I've got 4-ounce ramekins here. This is a little over a cup. A little over a cup of the coconut cream is what I'm going to need for this. To make four 4-ounce flans. So I'm going to grease each of these cups with a little bit of butter while this is simmering. And I do a little trick that I do because sometimes it's hard to get these things out. What I like to do is put a little disc of parchment in the bottom because that's what sticks. It's a little hard sometimes when you turn it over to get it to unstick from the bottom. The sides are relatively easy. So I grease it and I put the parchment in. All right, so this is going to have to go for about 5-10 minutes. And so we'll come back and we'll pick it up from that point. Okay, so this has been simmering for a while now, a little over 5 minutes. I've got the flavor. I can tell that it's starting to get the lobster flavor, but I really want to intensify that. So what I'm going to do is take this coconut cream mixture, shells and all, and I'm going to put it in the blender. Okay, and we are going to turn that on, and we're going to let the blender take those shells, bust them up, and get that flavor really in there. All right. Okay, that's good. Now we've got that nice and blended in. We are going to pour it through a strainer and get that nice lobster flavored cream out of there so it goes right back into the pot. In fact, we're going to make sure we want to get as much of that as we possibly can. So we're actually going to go ahead and push down on it to squeeze some more of the cream out from those shells. Okay, that's looking great. Going to put it back on the heat, keep it hot. We're going to rinse out. So I want to get all the shell bits out of the blender container. Okay, we got that. Put it back on. Now we're going to put in 4 eggs. Okay, 4 eggs, and we're going to start getting those scrambled up. Now we got that going, what we're going to do is we're going to add the cream back in slowly. We don't want to cook the eggs. The cream is hot. We're going to sort of temper them and make a nice custard out of this with the hot cream. So we're going to add it slowly so that they don't cook and we get a nice custard. You have to be patient with this. Don't just dump it in. You'll end up with creamy creamy lobster scrambled eggs. And it's behaving just like cream. It's behaving just like regular heavy cream. We get that custard mixture, and now it's ready to go. So I'm going to take my ramekins here that I had from before, and I'm going to pour the mixture into each one. All right, those are looking real good. I have my oven set to 350, and I'm going to cook these in what's called a bain-marie. What's a bain-marie? A bain-marie is basically a fancy name for a hot water bath, because you want to, it's to delicately cook something, make the heat even. So I have a pan, I have a towel, a kitchen towel that will heat them from sliding around. I'm going to put hot water in. What I've got here is just to get it initially soaked. I don't want to overfill it, because the idea is when I'm done, this is supposed to come up halfway on my ramekins. So I'm going to put the ramekins in here. So they're sitting. Now what's convenient is I happen to have a hot water, this is a hot water faucet here that makes, that just makes 190-degree water. I want to get this pretty much started. I'm going to use it, make sure you put hot water in until this thing is about halfway up on those ramekins. Sorry you have to look at my back, but that's where the sink is. Okay, I've got this water, and I'm going to pour it in, making sure that I don't get it into any ramekins, but I get it about halfway up the sides. And there we go. All righty. So I got that, and now I'm going to stick it in the oven. This is going to take about 50 minutes to cook, so I'm going to put it in my oven here, and then we'll come back and see how they turn out. In they go. See you in about an hour. Okay, it's been 45 minutes. I just checked them. They look really good, so let's pull them out and see what we got. Over here. Okay. Yeah, they're looking really nice. They are just slightly colored on the top. I'm going to check here with a toothpick. Stick them in there, and yeah, they're nice and firm. Nothing sticking to the toothpick, so they're done. Now what I'm going to have to do now is I'll have to take these out of here, put them to the side, and wait at least a half an hour before that I try to unmold them. So we'll come back after they've cooled a bit. Okay, so these have been sitting for a while. They've cooled down. I can hold them. You see, they're nice and cool. And so it's time to try and, unmold them. So usually I take a knife and go around, make sure, pull the sides away, make sure they're not sticking, pry it a little bit. And then you usually have to beat it up a little bit to get it to come out. If it sticks, turn it over like this, open it up. Okay, and there you have it. You just remove the paper that's in there that we talked about earlier, so you can throw that out. What I'm going to do with these, however, is I'm going to leave them just the way they are, because I'm making the rest of the lobster bisque tomorrow that this is going to be served with. So this is just going to go in the fridge just the way they are. I'll bring them up to room temperature, and I'll serve them with the bisque, and we'll do that tomorrow. Thanks very much. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again. Okay, so let's finish the lobster bisque dish that we started yesterday when we made the flan. What I have going here is a couple of cups of fish stock that's been fortified with some of the other shells from the lobster. So put them in there, and I let them cook with those shells, and I strained it out. So it's basically fish stock fortified with lobster shells. What I'm going to add to that is some tomato paste. This is maybe about an ounce of tomato paste. Okay, and tarragon. Okay. Now the other thing that I have to add to this is going to be some salt and pepper. There was no salt or pepper in this at all. So I'm going to start it out. I'm not going to put too much because I can always correct it at the end, but if I put too much, I can't take it out later. And what I'm going to use for pepper is white pepper. It's a slightly different flavor, but it's still very nice, and the advantage of it is it's not going to change the, you're not going to see those little black flecks floating around. It's finely ground white pepper. Okay, so we'll start with that. So that's simmering. And then I'm going to add the lobster meat from the lobster that I had the shells from yesterday that I had partially cooked. It's not fully cooked. First, I'm going to add this tail. I left the tail whole, and there's a reason for that. That's going to take a little longer than the rest of the chopped up meat. While that's happening, I am going to make a roux. A roux is basically just half fat and half flour. And the fat I'm using is butter, unsalted butter. About a tablespoon of that. I put about a tablespoon of flour. I get that going. I'm not trying to make a dark roux, I'm just trying to cook that raw flour flavor out and make this nice little paste that I can use then to thicken the soup if it needs to be thickened. Okay, so that's gonna just to go for a few minutes. And okay, so I have that going. Sorry for the interruption. I had to stop and take a phone call, believe it or not. Okay, I'm going to put the rest of the lobster meat in here. The tail's been poaching long enough, and it's pretty thin. I can tell it's pretty thin. You can tell, see, look, it's pretty thin. So I'm going to want to put some of this in to thicken it up. Okay, so we'll put some of that in. That'll help it thicken. I think that's probably enough. I don't need all of it because another thing I'm going to be adding is also the coconut cream. Sticking with our lactose-free that we started yesterday, I'm going to add coconut cream. This is about a half a cup of coconut cream. And that is looking real nice. Okay, we'll put the rest of it in. I just wanted to make sure we didn't add too much. Okay, and there we have it. So we'll give it a taste. It tastes really good. And how we're going to plate that? You remember I made the flans yesterday, so we'll plate it in a rimmed soup bowl. I'm going to put one of those flans in the middle. We're going to put the bisque around that, parts of the bisque in. And then on top of that flan, that's what the lobster tail was left whole for. We're going to make little slices and put little slices on the top of the flan and then sprinkle a little fresh parsley on it. So that's it. That's the lobster bisque dish we're going to have. I'm going to let it cook a little more and thicken a little more. Thank you for joining me.